All right, here we go, guys. Are you ready for this one? Okay, so we're going to be breaking down episode 6, which is called Swish, which, number one, this title is pretty odd because it seems to be in reference to Marina swishing her dress to see if you can tell if she's pregnant or not. I don't know. It was very strange. I don't know if it's supposed to kind of be like a basketball reference too, since what Lady Whistledown does to kind of ruin Marina's plans for Colin. But let us dive right in. I will tell you straight up, the second half of this entire review of mine will be devoted to the scene. And if you have never read the books before and don't know the scene, maybe you know now after watching this episode. And if not, we will get to it. As always, let's start with the top moments, which a lot of these have to do with sex, right? This is the sex episode. A couple of my friends who are parents, I did warn them. I was like, most of these episodes you'll be mostly okay. I mean, Netflix warns you. They're like, there's sex, nudity, smoking, and like sexual violence are the warnings. So I was like, but particularly episode 7. It's not like Stars, where like Stars warns you with each episode what's what, whereas Netflix just has a blanket episode for the whole thing. Because I was like, you can pretty much watch these episodes with whoever, but episode 6, make sure the kids are in bed because it's gonna get busy. So, top moments. Well, number 1 is all the sex, because I have to tell you, I was worried what amount of sexy time there would be in this show and what we would see. And we already knew kind of starting out because they showed us stuff with Anthony. And I feel like they did that in ways to not only tell his story, but like set a tone that like we're not getting to Daphne and Simon sex until episode 6, but like this is sexy. So don't start watching this with your grandma. Like they warned us with the butt cheeks like pretty early on. And, you know, banging against a tree. That was a thing that happened. But I really liked it. I thought it was really sexy. Obviously, like, Simon is a fucking dish. So give me all of Simon's booty all the time. Like, it's delicious. I wanted to bite it. I wish Daphne had done that vicariously for us. As in the last one I mentioned, when she gives him the pectoral boob crap, was really great. One thing I'll say, and a lot of these kind of blend together, is that it was always very vigorous. Sorry, I have to. This is a romance channel. If you're just watching me for reviews, know that I usually talk very in depth about fucking on my channel. So don't be surprised, right? But there was like the same position a lot of times and very vigorous. So one of the things I mentioned, in the last one is that something Simon very much delights in is the buildup. Because for him, since he is, you know, always going to be pulling out, the actual, like, intercourse of P and V part is a pretty short part of sex for him. And so I wish we had seen a little more of the romance of that. But they do a sex montage. I love a sex montage. It was brilliant. It was great. But I did write, it was pretty vigorous. I liked all the Simon butt. These are my notes, guys. Ready? Simon butt. I wrote it down. It's a thing. And then I liked the cute scene. So this is my second scene. Like I said, they're kind of blending together. Was with her maid Rose. The first scene with her maid Rose. Where, sorry, lighting is being a little bit annoying. There we go. With her maid Rose when she's untangling her hair, and it's kind of a telling scene because Daphne's like, I didn't think things would be quite so vigorous, and I thought that his not being able to have children would mean we wouldn't be able to have this. And so there's that first little seed of doubt that gets planted for Daphne of maybe this isn't what I thought it was. And this quickly continues where when they have sex in the gazebo and he pulls out to spend on the ground is she's like, does that hurt you? Like, why is it happening? And it is like, it's the hardest sell, I think, for the show watchers, as well as people who love the books, that someone would know so little about the bodily fluids and the workings of it. But, you know, Regency, it's a thing. Then I really liked the part, though, because I know that the reason they're not able to do this is more of Simon's hang up, But I thought it was a sweet thing to show when, after they have their day at the farm, or at the village, they're walking home together. And she's like, does it hurt you to see me with children? And he's like, Daphne, I only think about you. And I think it's because, Simon's resigned to not having kids, so he has never even dreamed about it. But his heart aches for her missing that. And I really like that she says, I have all that I want just here with you. And I think that's still an important thing to share, because though, again, the reason they won't be having kids is because of a hang-up of Simon's, it really is something that does affect, many, many couples all through time, infertility. And so to say that, you can have all you need, you can have a complete family with just you and your husband. And there are people who choose that without infertility being a problem. It's just that set in the time that we're set in, it's a bit more of an issue because they don't know about infertility as much. And so if you didn't have kids, you were just unlucky. And I love that Simon feels like he's lucky. I love when he says to her, how did I get such luck to have such a wonderful wife? And I mean, Simon, we know it's because you lied a little bit, but it's fine. We're getting there. It's cool. Then a top moment is the conversation with Mrs. Coulson. I don't appreciate the kind of rivalry they had set up with Mrs. Coulson, that she wouldn't be appreciative of this new bride who obviously Simon is enamored with. And if she really loves him, I don't see why she would be like that. But this is important because she kind of spills the beans. Well, not completely directly, but she says that a womb has to have seed. And Daphne is realizing what seed might be, what spend might be, and that so that the next sexual experience she has with Simon, when he pulls out and does it into a handkerchief, she's like, so it might not be that he can't, it might be that he won't. So that's the first indication she has. And then we have our second conversation with Rose, where Daphne goes to Rose and is like, explain all of it to me. And she's like, well, don't you know, she's like, my mother hasn't told me anything. I want you to tell me exactly, because obviously I know the things that I'm doing are supposed to lead to babies, but I think we're missing on something. And so then we are kind of set up for the scene. So obviously another top moment is the actual scene. It stands out. It's there. It is done differently than the books, and we're going to talk about that. First, let me talk about how it's done in the show and how I felt about it. Now, I can't divorce my thoughts from the book. That's why you're watching me. I am a book fan. I'm a book stan. I've loved the book. I have been a proponent of how the book itself was told, because I believe that Julia Quinn knew what she was telling, and that through the years our thoughts on it may have changed, but Julia always had in mind how she meant this to be seen and said. There is a video up on YouTube if for some reason you weren't a part of Binging Bridgerton, and it's on Peace Love Books channel, and it is the live show for the Duke and I, where one of our friends actually reads a statement from Julia Quinn about how she feels about this scene. So I will link that video in the card so you can go and see. I believe they have the timestamp in there, when it's said, and we'll get into that when I talk about the changes. But this one is a sober Simon. Daphne now knows what's being kept from her. And to me, it really read that she was going to test him. It is very clear in her eyes. There's even a little bit of spooky music that they go into that bedroom and she just strips off her clothes and is like, let's do it. There's her making almost eye contact with the camera, and she rolls him over, mounts him, and makes sure that they finish that way. And he doesn't really offer a huge protest, but it's clear when she climbs off of him that he feels betrayed, that he was put in a position where he couldn't control himself. It works. It absolutely works. It is definitely a clear consensual sexual relationship, and him not being drunk like he is in the book and not coming from sleep. They're both fully awake. They have not been asleep at all. And he doesn't even make an effort to get this tiny woman off of him, which he could have done. Whereas in the book, as we'll get to, that situation is much different, and he maybe wouldn't have enough willpower or forethought to do it. To me, in the show, he definitely could have, and is more shocked that she's forcing the issue. And so he says to her, like, what did you do? And she's like, I hoped that it wasn't true. And so it becomes clear that she was testing him to see how he would react and to see if the reason why they can't have a baby is because he doesn't want to or if he can't. And it's the point of The Duke and I, is that vow that was made at the end of episode 2, when he looked into his dying father's face and said, I won't get married. Well, he's already got married. And I will never sire an heir. Well, now he might have sired an heir. And so that vow will obviously come back up. We're going to talk about it. It is a big point of the story. Alexa, what's my notification?
One new notification from Amazon Shopping. A shipment has arrived.
And it happened. And then Daphne explains how she feels betrayed, that how lucky it was that he got someone so naive. And Simon shoots back. He's like, I couldn't believe you'd be that ignorant about the parts of sex, which, hold up, he's the one she went to find out about sex. And all he talked about was touching herself, not about the fluids exchanged or what it was really like. And he just assumes that she knows and what him pulling out of her, what it means. But that's a lie. Like, there's things. But he is right in saying that he was willing to die rather than marry her because he knew he would be withholding children. He didn't tell her those reasons for withholding children, but he was upfront and honest that there would be no children from a union of them. However, Daphne is also right in saying, but I trusted you more than anyone else, and you didn't explain to me why. Like, that should have been a conversation that we had, even if you're so dead set on there being no children. Like, you really needed to tell me the reasons why and not just say there wouldn't be, because that's a lie by omission, and it's still a lie. And so, for me, this is the heart of the book, and it's ugly and painful, and we're gonna go into depth about how it's different from the book and why I personally think the book does this better. And not because I feel like in the show they erase a lot of the dubious consent. Like, to me, that is clearly not dubious consent, because he is an enthusiastic partner who's awake and present and doesn't make a move to do anything, whereas in the book there are differences with that. The show, it is literally like a 2-second where he doesn't do anything. But I think the book does it better because it brings up the conversation more starkly. And that's my opinion, and I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts on why. But it's still good. It's still good, and I think the things she says are true, where she's like, you were just so happy I was ignorant, and we didn't talk about it at all. And that was a lie by omission, and you betrayed me. And so I like the Lady Whistledown overcast where it says all is fair in love and war. And yeah, so now we're going to go through some differences, and then we will break down the scene more directly. But those were my top moments. And now we're going to talk about some differences, and then I have a whole page of notes about the scene. But still trying to keep this in some semblance of order here. So, things that are changed, Colin and Marina, we just gotta make it through it at this point. Colin announces that they're engaged in front of everyone so that it can't be taken back. Penelope tries to warn Colin and says she's in love with someone else. I've seen the letters. She is frightened, but she doesn't love you. And Colin is kind of like, but she's going to marry me and she'll forget about that person and it's fine. And, Penelope does her best, and it's very hard to see. And through this episode, we see her again and again bring it up of like, this isn't fair. This is a good person. And if you had told him all the facts and he still wanted to marry you, it would be okay. So we also see him at odds with his family over this because he is young. I think he's only a year older than Daphne. So that makes him only like 22. So he's kind of young to be getting married for their standards. And he didn't consult his family, which he really should have, and let his family kind of vet this person. I'm sure from his point of view, he just feels like it's so romantic and he's so in love. And I wouldn't say that Marina is lying to him, but I wouldn't say that she's playing him for, like, she sees that he'll be a good man and she is desperate. And so she's like, I'm going to take my chance because I don't want to marry one of these creepy old people who keeps coming for me, which is completely fair, but it's our Colin, so it sucks. We also get more hints that the Featheringtons are deep in debt. So I didn't do my research back into the Featheringtons again, but I believe that book moment here that I don't remember if the father actually did screw up like this, but I know that the other sisters, at least one of them, does make a good match because in later books, she's married and has kind of like alleviated a lot of the stress off of the family. So I don't know, that's kind of an interesting tidbit to add in, but I don't, maybe another more diligent book reader than I, yes, there are some who know even more than I, could comment on that. Yeah, well, I guess then the rest of my things are all about the scene, so we'll get back into it. So, all right, so how it's different and why, like I said, I think the book does better. So I, of course, do agree with the author. Like I said, if you go what she had to say about it, she says that the main change she would make is she would have Simon not be drunk and sleeping, which, yes, would have alleviated a lot of non-consent. But the things in the book that how this is different. So in the show, as I said, Daphne has started putting the pieces together and she has a conversation with Mrs. Coulson. And then when she asks Rose and she knows everything, she decides to test Simon. And for me, she is very deliberately choosing to test her husband without having talked to him about it first. She's just going to seduce him and take a shot at it before talking about it. This really bothered me, actually, because I feel like the way she does it in the show is just as manipulative, if not more so, than what's done in the book. The difference being, yes, he's awake and sober and he could pull out, but he doesn't. Whereas in the book, which we'll talk about, it's a little bit different. But to me, the look that they put in Daphne's eyes and the way that she takes on this calculating thing to test him in this way, which she knows if she's right will be a big betrayal. If she's wrong, she's wrong. Maybe he just, didn't want a child yet or something like that. But the deliberate choice that she makes, the way that they play it is that it's a deliberate choice. The way that this differs from the book for me. So in the book, all of this starts actually like a couple days before or the day before, where they're having a consensual situation and everything's going great. And they actually have a really steamy sex scene with a little bit of light bondage happening. And it's really great. And Simon pulls out and Daphne is like, why do you do that? Why are you choosing to do that? And so they end up having the conversation where he explains, yes. So she's like, why can't you have children, Simon? And he won't answer her. And she's like, why? And he's like, well, the details aren't important. And she says, get out of this room. Because she immediately feels the betrayal and she realizes what's happened. And it leads to a really crazy scene, which I'm going to read to you here, which is, let me tell you a story, okay? Once upon a time, there was a young lady. Let's call her Daphne. Daphne was very, very stupid. Oh, very well, ignorant then. She was very, very ignorant. Daphne knew nothing about what happened between a man and a woman, and she didn't know what they did, except that they did it in bed, and then at some point the result would be a baby. But you see, she didn't really know how the baby was made, and so when her husband told her he couldn't have children, and Simon breaks in at this point and says, I told you that before we married. I gave you every option to back out. Don't you dare forget that. You made me feel sorry for you, she said. "Oh, now, that's just what a man loves to hear," he sneered. "For the love of God, Simon, you know I didn't marry you because I felt sorry for you." "Then why?" "Because I loved you," she replied, "and because I didn't want to see you die, which you seemed stupidly bent upon. And don't try to make this about me. I'm not the one who lied. You said you couldn't have children, but it's the truth that you just don't want to have them. If you truly couldn't have children, it wouldn't matter where your seed landed, would it? You wouldn't be so frantic every night to make certain it ended up anywhere but inside me. You don't know anything about this, Daphne. Then tell me." I will never have children," he hissed. "Never. Do you understand?" And she says no. And then we go into about his father and the vow that he made and everything. And she says his stutter really comes out. It's really crazy. But they have this knockdown, drag out fight about it. And then she tries to talk to him about it for days. And she moves out of the bedroom, all right? So Daphne in the book makes the choice to remove herself from him when she figures this out. Because she's like, I don't want to be in the same place as you. And that night when he goes to bed and she's not there, he goes to the Duchess's chambers and bangs on the door and is going to break it down. And she's like, the only reason to let you in would be to let you into my bed. And you're no longer welcome there, so you may not come in. And Simon of the book says that he owns the room and he owns her and he can do whatever she wants. And she's like, you're right. You can force me if you want. But I am no longer willing in this situation if you're going to do that. And so he won't force himself into it. He won't force himself on her then. But she tells him no. And she says no 4 times. Okay? This is very important to me. I talk about this a lot when I did my book review for it. She says no 4 times. And he says, Daphne, I'm warning you. And she says no means no. Okay, we are setting up that no means no. It's good. And he says, you are my wife. You will sleep with me in my bed. No, she says. Daphne, I'm warning you. Her eyes narrow to slits. You have chosen to withhold something from me. Well, I have chosen to withhold something from you. Me. And he was speechless. He was utterly speechless. She, however, was not. She marched to the door and motioned rather rudely for him to go through it. Get out of my room. Simon started to shake with rage. I own this room, he growled. I own you. You own nothing but your father's title, she shot back. You don't even own yourself. I love this part of the book because then he's like, what do you mean? And she says, figure it out. He grabs her, holds her still, and says, explain yourself now. And Daphne says, you are not your own man. Your father is still ruling you from the grave. Your actions, your choices, they have nothing to do with you, with what you want or what you need. Everything you do, Simon, every move you make, every word you speak, it's always just to thwart him, and he's not even alive. And then Simon tries to seduce her. He's like, not everything I do, when I touch you, when we're skin to skin, and she says, no. When you take me to bed, she choked out, it is never just the two of us. Your father is always there. Can you look me in the eye, she whispered, and tell me that when you pull out from my body and give yourself instead to the bed, that you're thinking about me? And she said, I didn't think so. And she says now, after that, she's like, I think you'd better leave. And he's like, you are my wife. Legally, I own you. That's true, Daphne said. I can make you want me, he whispered. And even if I couldn't, you're mine. You belong to me. I could force you to let me stay. And Daphne felt about 100 years old, and she said, you would never do that. And he knew she was right, so he just wrenched himself away from her and stormed out of the room. So that is all of the stuff leading up to this scene. They have had a consensual sexual experience. Then the next day she moves out of their room, and he leaves. And so going into the scene, Daphne has made herself clear. She has said no, 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 no about 6 times that she doesn't want this to happen, and she has removed herself from him. Okay? So very different situation. Now, when we get to the scene, he has went out and got very drunk, and he's feeling sorry for himself. And instead of going back to his room, he goes to her room, and he makes a big scene, caterwauling like a sad, lost cat. And bangs on her door until she lets him in, and she's like, Simon, what are you doing? And so they have some banter back and forth, and he's like, I love you, laugh. It's a really like comedic scene in a way. And he's like, please don't leave me. Everyone's left me. My mother left. He left. I left then. Please don't leave me. And she's like, okay, you can sleep off your drunkenness in my bed. And so he's like, okay. And she tries to like tuck him in, and he's like, but that's no reason for you to leave me. You can't leave me. And then they fall asleep together. So we have a drunk Simon, and about an hour or so later, Daphne wakes up because he's moving around and thrashing around and stuff. And he kind of rolls over into her, and he's aroused. And Daphne didn't realize a man could be aroused while he was sleeping. And he's rubbing himself up on her, which, let's be honest, has happened in couples before. And sometimes you make lazy love together, and you don't even fully come awake from it. And it isn't an assault, even though both of you aren't fully awake and you haven't said anything. However, now we get to what's wrong. And as I talk through this scene, guys, I know it's not right. That is never in any question. What happens between these two, it's not right. Because there's a miscommunication, and the others know what the other wants, but they don't do it. And that doesn't make it okay. But it makes it something worth talking about, right? Like, that is what I love about this altogether. I love that romance gives us the time to talk about things. But Simon keeps rubbing up on her and kissing her, and she realizes this. She says she could have what she wanted. And so she starts to arouse him further. And then he says, he's like, Daphne, I need you. I need you right now. And so she says, let me do everything. And it is in her head that she is like, this could be my chance. She does think that, okay? So there is that part of premeditation, but to me, it's a much different than how the show shows it, where it is like premeditated by like a day. Like, this was in the moment. She has removed herself from him. Simon put himself in this position and has put himself here. And now, I know people bring this up. They're like, that doesn't mean people need to be assaulted when they're drunk. Again, I know that. I am not excusing date rape or having sex with people when they're drunk. I am not excusing it. I'm just stating the fact that Simon, the experienced lover of the two, has gotten drunk, placed himself in her bed after having hurt her very badly and saying that he owns her body and can do whatever he wants to her. And now we're in the middle of the night, and Daphne is sitting with those feelings, and he's coming on to her in his sleep. And she sees the opportunity to do the same, to take what she wants after being told that she belongs to someone, that her very essence belongs to this man. And so she goes for it. And the only things that comes out of his mouth is he gives her a pleading look, and he says, oh Christ, I'm going to, I can't. And Daphne bore down on him with all her might. And so there is a split second where she takes that choice away. And it's wrong. And it's so heartbreaking because it's a moment of trust being broken again. Trust has already been broken when he pulled out of her that last time. And trust is broken when he stays in her this time. She makes him stay in. And it's heartbreaking. But to me, this is not rape. I'm sorry. I'll say it and I'll fight for it. This is not rape. This is a tragic misunderstanding between two people who are so close to love, and then they let this get in the way instead of having a conversation and talking through his fears and plans for the future with his bride. He chooses to keep her in ignorance, and then she chooses to take the only chance she feels like she has. And again, I'm not saying it's right, but there is a gray area in this situation between this couple, between rape and wrong. And this isn't like, it doesn't fall on this side. It falls on this side. And immediately the conversation we have following it is, you know, the same kind of thing where he leaves immediately and she's like, you did this to me. And she's like, what did I do that's so wrong? You wanted me. You know you wanted me. And he says, like, don't touch me, and he flees from her. And so he does react to it as it is horrible. And in the show, they have him react a little more like dumbfounded, which I think is all right. And again, I don't think that what the show did is bad either. I mean, it's bad. Like, the act is bad. The way they portrayed it, I don't think is... But the thing for me is that it's a much more premeditated Daphne that we see in the show. And she hasn't even talked to Simon about it at all. So to me, that's why I see it so different. Is the one in the book, she now knows what she's up against. And she knows that he has purposely lied. And he's told her that he doesn't want it. But then he comes to her bed and puts himself in her arms and starts humping her in his sleep. Okay? Whereas the other one, he's awake and not drunk. But she hasn't even asked him about what his feelings are at all. And she's just going to test him. And so for me, one of those speaks to a scarier type of character. And also, Simon has never said, I own you, you don't have a choice in it, in the show. He's never said any of those things. And she jumps right to trying to get knocked up before talking about it. Whereas in the book, to me, there is lots of conversation that happens. There is this whole thing where he gets drunk and climbs into her bed, and then that. So, again, to bring this all around, neither is good. To me, this book brings up so much great conversation. I'm so glad that they did still keep some kind of, you know, with the seed and with the impregnation. And I like that they still kept that because it still leads to the conversation. But in the book, it's a lot more about that the only chance she has is this, because Simon has said, like, I can do whatever I want. Whereas in the show, he's never made her feel that way. And so it's a bigger betrayal to me, even though it's a simpler scene and it's less crazy and dubious. It still speaks to a sinister situation that is uncomfortable for me, and I don't like it. But you're not supposed to like it. So that's what I always say about this. You're not supposed to like it. It's supposed to lead to these conversations about what marital assault might be and what it's not. And to me, this is not. And we will see other situations of that, you know, through other people in Bridgerton's and through Regency. Like, there are definite situations of marital assault. Or like the situation with Simon's parents, where his father didn't even see his mother as anything more than a broodmare, where Simon sees Daphne as the exact opposite, because he's never expecting to get children out of her. And he's just taking complete joy in having someone who loves him and is his spouse. So anyway, this is a controversial one. I hope we have lots to talk about. Keep it civil. You are welcome to post your opinion at all, but I will not take any personal attacks. Thank you. If you feel like doing that, your comment will never see the light of day, but we can talk about the content, and you are more than welcome to your opinions about that, but I will not take anything about me being an internalized misogynist or being a horrible person. That will not stay. But I love you all. Thank you so much. We have 2 more episodes left. Let us see how things work out for Daphne and Simon. I'm very intrigued. I hope you are too. And all in all, it's still a beautiful to watch show, and I hope it has really intrigued a lot of people. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.